Dead Med by Freida Mcfadden. One night at a competitive med school, shots are fired. Someone is murdered, but how did it get to this and what's going to happen next? Dead Med is the story of a group of medical students who are trying to get by and get through all the pressures of med school. But in this particular med school, the students are finding out that there are a lot of hidden secrets. It's called Dead Med because of a series of overdoses that have happened to prior students. And so the question you have as you read this book, who's actually going to survive to the end? I have to say that I had to read this one because I reviewed Freida Mcfadden's last book, The Teacher, a few weeks ago, and I said then that it was her latest book. Little did I know that this book came out just 1 week ago. So it turns out this author really likes to write books and write them fast. I think she's figured out her formula for how to come out with an engaging plot because it is engaging. She is very good at doing plot and pacing and structuring the chapters so that you just want to keep reading to see what happens in the end. So kudos to her for having it figured out. Dead Med is a little different than The Teacher in that in The Teacher you were going back and forth between a couple of points of view. In this one, you hear the whole story from one student's perspective, and then you hear the story from another student's perspective, so you're kind of getting a furthering of the story, but you go back to the same point at the beginning of each person's story. So it has a similar feel to Vantage Point, if you've seen that movie. I personally like that, and I like that style of going back to the beginning and then you hear the story again from a new perspective. The disadvantage of it is that it didn't really have a hook. You have the opening teaser where you have the shots that are fired and there's lots of mystery about who and what and how and all that. But then you get the perspective of this girl and she's trying to get through med school and there's not really anything that really struck me as gripping, as compelling. But then as I kept reading and I got the other students' stories, it became more interesting and I saw what she was doing with the Vantage style storyline. So then it became fun. So I ended up having a good time going through this book. This is only the second book that I've read by Freida Mcfadden, but a lot of the things that I said before are still very applicable. She has this tendency to have normal characters that are like, oh, I'm just trying to get through med school and you know stay calm under pressure, but then I got these blackmailing notes and then I had to confront the blackmailer and then there was this big argument and then I accidentally hit them over the head with a shovel and then it killed them and then I had to bury the body and then some people saw me and so I started freaking out because then I was going to get caught and I had to murder more people. Okay, this book didn't quite go that crazy and it's not quite that unreasonable, but there is that sense of characters going off the handle when a normal person would have a much more normal reaction. Like I said last time, these people, they make bad choices and then they continue to make bad choices to cover up their first bad choices. I guess that's part of the fantasy you just have to accept when you read a book like this. Like I said, this book was fun to read. It wasn't quite as good as The Teacher. Number one, because it didn't have as engaging of an opener. The Teacher, I had more of a reason to keep reading and figuring out what was going on, and this one took a little longer, and The Teacher had a really cool twist at the end, and this one had a reasonable ending, but it wasn't a cool twist in the same way. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it was good. I thought I had fun with it, but not quite as good as The Teacher, I'd say. Also, a word of caution to people who are taking my star ratings a bit too seriously. This book was fun and forgettable. But sometimes that's just what you want to be reading. You want to read just something to be entertained by for the hours that you're reading it, and that's it. So I think it fills a good reading function for a lot of people. Of course, the issue is that it's hard to give these kinds of books like 5 stars. I do like reading books like this sometimes, but my realistic star rating, if I had to put it in perspective with other books that I've read, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars.